Hi, Sherilyn Goodworth here. I'm just chilling on a Friday afternoon. Got some DuckTales playing in the background. Um, oh man, yes, I wear dresses all the time because there's no waistband. I just need to vlog for a minute because there's just a lot going on. I grew up in Pocatello, which was a smallish town, but I was just a kid and I didn't understand things. And then I moved to some cities back east and I went on a mission to Pittsburgh and came back to Pocatello, went to ISU, met my husband in the music department, and then we started our music jobs together. Well, really, he did, and I popped out kids for 10 years, and then got my first job here at a charter school in Blackfoot. And it was when I moved to Blackfoot that I started to really see, through my 30-year-old eyes, 30s, that there's interesting little contradictions in small towns. That the the way that small towns operate is that there are little clubs that you're either part of them or you're not, and if you are, you work very hard to keep people out, and you work very hard to just maintain a control. And these aren't people that are evil. They're not terrible people. It's almost like a fear that if they lose control of a place, then something bad will happen. I don't know. I'm giving them grace because I don't understand it. I was, for whatever reason, given this like way too strong of a sense of justice. And when I see things that aren't right, I call them out. I make enemies. I shake the system. I don't love shaking the system and I don't like having enemies, but there's just something so strong inside of me that needs to see people being treated equally and things going right and well. And I don't sit on the sidelines well. I am the oldest of 8 children and I'm a fixer. So why am I making this vlog? Because first of all, I feel like if I can possibly do it quickly, I need to explain what happened at City Hall the other night. So we have a subdivision going in our backyard. It's called the Highland Heights subdivision. And yeah, it's of interest to me because it's right here. But I also seriously have very strong concerns about these little neighborhoods. My first one was the one over there on Clover Street, where my friend had apartments pop up right in his backyard. And I don't know. It's fine. We need to have some of that. And that one's not terrible. This one over here is terrible because the developer, and yeah, I know he appears so nice on Facebook and he's a diplomat. But the reason that I'm kind of fierce with him on Facebook, and I honestly can't stomach the guy, is because with my friend Heather, and you guys have all figured out that we're friends. We've been friends a long, long time. We've seen a lot of injustices in other organizations like the Blackfoot Community Players and things like that. We're alike in the way that people should, if they're going to make bylaws, they should follow them and stuff. And in these small towns, it's kind of like, well, if we don't feel like doing the laws today, we'll just not. And there probably won't be any consequences because we're in that good old boys club and it'll be just fine. So we were looking at this, basically the plat of land for this Highland Heights. And we were going through the city code, which this is where Heather is just absolutely excellent. Her mind is like a lawyer, like a really good lawyer. Like she's a mathematician and she just loves combing through data. So we're combing through the city codes and we're finding what medium density housing is supposed to have as far as easements and square footage of lots and all of these things. And yes, they turned around and got a conditional use, or not, that's what they didn't get. It was the conditional use permit. They don't have all their paperwork filed correctly. But they also got this. Basically, a PUD is an exception to all of the codes and the easements and things like that. But somehow they went from having the canal company really concerned about not being able to drive trucks down and clear out the waste that was going to come down, like tree branches and stuff, to now this canal company, somehow magically the canal company is saying you don't need a 50-foot easement, you 15 feet will be fine, meaning that's 8 steps for a kid from his back door to the water. And you don't need a park. It's okay. You know, a 5-foot strip on the end of a row of 30 apartments will be enough green space to, make Blackfoot a great place to live. The roads have been counted in the square footage of the minimum square footage of the lot. The lots are 26 feet wide. They don't have room for cars. It's a nightmare of a development. Now, those of you on Facebook that are saying you should be able to do what you want with your land, well, there are countries that operate that way, and they do whatever they want. They do not obey codes, and they build unsafe structures, and it becomes a slum in a big hurry because they don't follow these laws. We are America. We have these little bits of regulation that make things better. They make the streets passable and safe for kids to ride bikes. We have problems with traffic and water and sewer. And when I say traffic, this monstrosity of a huge development that's going in back here, it's 168 homes over basically 13 acres. It's 18 if you include the roads. But it's emptying out into these little residential neighborhoods, adding a ton of traffic. So, we've watched over the process of going to planning and zoning and doing all of this research. We've watched planning and zoning put in their minutes, oh, the residents didn't bring any studies, like the burden of proof is on us because this is how the process works. The developer comes and says, everything looks good. And it's 8:30 at night and planning and zoning is tired. And they're like, okay, because what are they going to do? Sit and do math right there and see if they're telling the truth? So these developers can straight up lie. But Heather and I and several others in this neighborhood, there's some amazing people in this neighborhood that have been on this project. It is not just the two of us. There is a huge group of us. We're doing the math, we're looking at it, we're realizing they're cheating, they're cutting corners, not just small corners, but even if they were small, every one of these grievances is piled up, just adds up to the shoddiest development you've ever seen. So, to make a long story short, we're trying to get the attention of planning and zoning. We don't know how to get the math to them. We don't know how to get the data to them because we have 3 minutes to present it and they won't let us defer time to anyone else. So if all of us could donate our 3 minutes to one person to give a great presentation with, a graphic and some, and we could actually get the information to them, but they just won't let us because there's something going on. There's something going on to where they just don't want to hear it. And because we've appealed and we've come back and they actually messed up and put the wrong date for the meeting, so they had to rehear it, and that was on them, not us. But Stufflebeam was the planning and zoning chair, so he heard it during the planning and zoning phase. And then he got elected mayor and moved up to the chair of the city council. So by the time city council is hearing this, because planning and zoning was basically shoving it off their plate, not only did they not really look at the facts and get to see the actual problems with it, but they really ignored the comprehensive plan for the city that talks about the load on the infrastructure and also the nuisance and things like that, traffic studies. They did finally get a guy in there. It took yelling at them. That was Stufflebeam. When he was planning and zoning chair, yelled at them and said, you get that traffic study or don't come back. We actually clapped for him on that. We thought, oh, great, finally somebody that's responsible. That's awesome. So we, anyway, this has gone on for 9 minutes. I better hurry up. So what happened was Stufflebeam had heard enough, but we needed to talk to city council. Those are our elected officials. Planning and zoning is not elected, but those are our elected officials. And so when we got in there, they didn't give us time. They gave us, 5 minutes for one person or something. So we had Heather try to say everything in 5 minutes, and it wasn't good enough. And so basically she stood up and talked about the conditional use permit that they never filed. And the lawyer who had, previous told us that he doesn't care about Robert's Rules of Order and he's going to let the chair just persuade everybody into doing whatever. The chair is not supposed to do anything but break the tie. They're not supposed to influence the vote. Also, 3 members of planning and zoning live right next to this development, and 2 of them would probably really be detrimentally affected if if it went out onto Wooten Way instead of onto Highland Drive. And so when we said, could you please just get the density down and get the road out to Wooten Way, they're like, oh, you can't talk, cut off, blah, blah, and they just shoved it all off. And by the way, they let the developer just talk and talk way past his time. Anyway, so then it goes to city council. We don't get to speak, except Heather gets up there and talks about the conditional use permits. They cut her off. They're super rude to her. And that Stuffleby, man, that's his personality. He just barked at her and cut her down. And I appreciated Debbie Barlow. She had an arsenal of things to bring up, and she brought up just one thing and they shot it down, and Stufflebeam told him how to vote and they voted, and he shouldn't have said a word. And we were just fuming because he is not even supposed to talk. And we asked, why is he influencing the vote? He's only supposed to be the tiebreaker. And anyway, it's been a very frustrating process. So what's the next thing? The next thing is to do a motion to reconsider. So we send that into City Hall and they ignore it. They don't put it on the agenda. We call and call and call until we've basically forced them to put it on the agenda. But we were told by the people at City Hall that he was not going to let us speak at all. And so we're feeling like we cannot speak to our elected officials. Democracy is dead in small towns. This is really ridiculous. And we're thinking, oh my heck, we're going to have to do a GoFundMe and we're going to have to get a lawyer, because this is our children's neighborhood. This is where my grandkids will play. It matters to me. So I've got a friend coming in, so I better hurry. Anyway, what you saw in the video was us trying to do a point of order. And the point of order means that everything ceases and they listen to us. And you heard him shout me out of the room. And so that's why that was going on. Anyway, I better go. Bye.